African woman saves a man from a horrific car crash. She had no idea he was a billionaire Arab executive. What happens next will break your heart. Imagine risking your life to save a complete stranger from the wreckage of a burning car, only to later discover he was one of the richest and most powerful men in the world. This story will take you on an emotional journey of courage, fate, and life-changing connection that you won't forget. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. This way, you'll never miss any of our inspiring true stories that touch the heart and awaken the soul. The rain fell hard against the cracked asphalt, blurring the lines between earth and sky. It was late evening on the outskirts of Nairobi, and most sane drivers had already found shelter from the unforgiving storm. But under the dark, heavy clouds, a silver Maserati tore through the empty road, its tires struggling for grip. Inside, Karim Al-Fulan, a 35-year-old Arab executive known for his steel heart and billion-dollar empire, fought the wheel with gritted teeth. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't supposed to be alone. And yet, he was, chasing a ghost he couldn't name, desperate to escape a life that had become a golden cage. One wrong turn was all it took. The Maserati skidded off the slick road, crashing violently into a massive acacia tree. The airbags deployed with brutal force. Shattered glass rained inside the car. Smoke hissed from the hood, mixing with the stench of burning rubber. Karim's world went black. Half a mile away, Amina Mwangi, a 26-year-old woman with calloused hands and a heart too big for the world she lived in, trudged through the mud, carrying 2 heavy sacks of maize on her back. Her village depended on the market sales tomorrow. There was no time to waste, even in a storm like this. When she heard the deafening crash, she froze. A chill ran through her, not from the cold, but from something deeper, something primal. Without thinking, Amina dropped her sacks in the mud and ran toward the sound. The wreckage was horrific. The luxury car was wrapped around the tree, crumpled like a tin can. Smoke poured from under the hood. Flames licked the edges of the engine. It would only be minutes, maybe seconds, before the whole vehicle went up. Through the cracked windshield, Amina could see a man, blood trailing down his temple, his head slumped against the steering wheel. He was alive, barely. Her mind screamed at her to wait for help, to be smart, to protect herself. But her heart, the same heart that made her feed stray dogs and give her last coins to the elderly, wouldn't let her stand by. Amina yanked open the door. It was stuck. She screamed against the rain, bracing her foot against the metal frame, pulling with every ounce of strength she had. Finally, the door gave with a groan of tortured metal. "Sir, can you hear me?" she cried, her voice trembling. The man didn't respond. Smoke was filling the car fast now. The dashboard sparked dangerously. Amina coughed, tears streaming down her face, not just from the smoke, but from terror. She grabbed the man's shoulders. He was heavy, solid with muscle, but she didn't stop to think about it. She pulled, heaving him out inch by inch. The fire roared louder. "You have to fight," she begged, not knowing if he could even hear her. "Please, help me." Somehow Karim stirred, just enough to shift his weight. With a final desperate pull, Amina dragged him free of the wreckage, collapsing onto the wet ground beside him just as the flames engulfed the front of the car. For a moment, they lay there, two strangers, soaked and broken, in the middle of a storm that cared nothing for either of them. Amina gasped for breath, her arms burning with exhaustion. She looked down at the man she had risked everything to save. Blood trickled from a cut above his eye. His expensive suit was shredded and soaked through. His skin was olive-toned, his features sharp and foreign. But none of that mattered. All that mattered was that he was breathing. "You're safe," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "You're safe now." In the distance, the faint sound of sirens pierced the night. But for Amina and Karim, the storm had only just begun. Would the stranger she had rescued ever open his eyes? And if he did, what kind of world would be waiting for both of them? The cold seared Karim's skin as consciousness clawed its way back to him. His head pounded with a ferocity he had never known, each heartbeat pulsing through the gash on his forehead. For a moment, he thought he was dead. Then he felt the rain, the relentless, merciless rain, drenching his battered body, and the rough texture of muddy ground beneath him. Slowly, painfully, he forced his eyes open. The first thing he saw was a blur of color, a shadow moving over him. Panic flared. His instincts, sharpened from years of business battles and betrayal, told him not to trust. But then the shadow spoke, and the voice that reached him was unlike any he had ever heard. Soft, raw, trembling with emotion. "You're okay. You're safe," the voice said, full of warmth and fierce tenderness. He blinked through the rain, trying to focus. A young woman knelt beside him, her clothes soaked and torn, her hands trembling as she checked his pulse. Her face was illuminated in flashes of distant lightning, dark skin glistening with rain, wide eyes full of fear and determination. He tried to speak, but only a broken sound escaped his throat. "Don't move," she said quickly. "Help is coming. You're going to be all right." Karim's mind spun. Where was he? What had happened? Memories flickered, losing control of the car, the tree rushing toward him, the explosion of pain, and then darkness. Until now. He wanted to ask who she was, why she was helping him, but he couldn't form the words. His body betrayed him, heavy and weak. The sirens grew louder, closer. Red and blue lights began to paint the stormy night. "Stay with me," the woman urged, squeezing his hand tightly. "Please, just stay awake." Her hand was rough, calloused from hard work, but her touch was gentle. anchoring him to the world when everything else was slipping away. When the paramedics finally arrived, they rushed toward him, barking orders in hurried Swahili. Karim winced as hands lifted him onto a stretcher, the pain tearing a groan from his chest. Through the chaos, he searched for the woman's face one last time. There she was, standing back now, muddy and soaked to the bone, arms wrapped around herself for warmth. Their eyes met for a brief, electric moment. He wanted to say thank you. He wanted to say so much more. But then the doors slammed shut, and the ambulance roared away into the storm. Hours later, Karim woke again, this time to the sterile brightness of a hospital room. The sharp scent of disinfectant filled the air. His head was bandaged, his arm strapped to an IV drip. Machines beeped steadily around him. He was alive, broken, bruised, but alive. A nurse entered the room, a clipboard in hand. She smiled kindly, her voice brisk but not unkind. "You're lucky," she said. "If she hadn't pulled you out when she did, you wouldn't be here." "She?" His voice was a rasp, barely recognizable. The nurse nodded. "A young woman. She saved your life. Refused to leave until she saw you breathing." She hesitated, then added, "She didn't even tell us her name. Just disappeared once she knew you were safe." Karim closed his eyes, the image of her face burning behind his eyelids. He wasn't used to being vulnerable. He wasn't used to needing anyone. In his world, everything had a price. Loyalty, friendship, even love. But she had asked for nothing. The thought unsettled him more than the pain in his broken ribs. He lay there, listening to the machine's hum, feeling the storm still raging somewhere outside. For the first time in years, Karim felt something crack open inside him, a fissure in the walls he had spent his life building. He needed to find her. He needed to understand why a stranger would risk everything for a man she didn't know. And deep down, beneath the sharp ache of his injuries and pride, a part of him already knew. This woman hadn't just saved his life. She had changed it. But how could he find her in a city of millions? And what would happen when their two worlds collided? The days blurred together in a haze of hospital walls and quiet pain. Karim's body healed slowly, but something inside him remained raw, restless. His assistants, flown in from Dubai, tried to manage his affairs, desperate to keep the empire running smoothly without its master. They spoke of meetings, of market crashes, and negotiations waiting for his signature. But Karim barely listened. All he could think about was her, the nameless woman who had saved him and disappeared without a trace. In his world of power and wealth, everything had always been within reach: deals, assets, people. But now, faced with the mystery of one ordinary woman in a foreign city, Karim felt powerless. It gnawed at him in a way no failed business venture ever had. He needed to find her, not to repay her, not even to thank her, though he would, and more. He needed to see her again because something about her had stirred something long buried inside him. Humanity. On the 4th day after his surgery, against the protests of his doctors and staff, Karim checked himself out of the hospital. The air outside was hot and heavy with the scent of wet earth. Nairobi was still reeling from the storm, streets muddy and markets struggling to reopen. Karim wore a simple black shirt and jeans, a baseball cap pulled low to hide the bandages still visible on his forehead. He couldn't afford to draw attention. Not yet. He returned to the crash site first. The acacia tree still stood, scarred but alive. Pieces of his Maserati had been cleared away, but Karim could still see the faint skid marks where his car had lost control. He knelt in the mud, feeling the earth with his fingers, trying to reconstruct that night. Where had she come from? Where had she gone? An old man selling roasted corn by the roadside eyed him curiously. Karim approached him, speaking softly in broken Swahili. "Do you remember the accident?" he asked. The old man nodded sagely. "Terrible crash. Thought the man inside was dead." Karim gestured urgently. "The woman who saved him. Did you see her?" The man squinted, searching his memory. "Young woman, strong. She carried maize, I think. Walked toward Kibera." Kibera, one of Africa's largest slums, a place of crushing poverty, resilience, and survival, a world away from Karim's palaces of glass and steel. He nodded his thanks, slipped a few bills into the old man's hand, and headed toward the tangled maze of corrugated rooftops. The deeper Karim went into Kibera, the more surreal it felt. Narrow alleys twisted like veins through a living, breathing city. Children played barefoot in puddles. Women bartered for tomatoes and onions, their laughter rising above the hum of life. Every corner buzzed with a kind of raw, chaotic energy he had never experienced before. It was here, amid the dirt and noise, that he realized just how invisible he was. Nobody cared about his fortune here. Nobody cared about his name. He was just another broken man looking for something or someone. He spent hours wandering, showing a blurred photo taken from a security camera, himself being dragged from the wreckage to anyone who would look. Some shook their heads, some shrugged, a few pointed vaguely deeper into the slums. As the sun began to set, Karim found himself standing outside a tiny open-air church made of scrap metal and painted wood. A group of women were stacking chairs and sweeping the dirt floor. One of them, an older woman with wise eyes, noticed him lingering and approached. "You look lost," she said in crisp English. Karim nodded. "I'm looking for someone. She saved my life." He showed her the photo. The woman studied it carefully. Then a slow, knowing smile touched her lips. "I know who you're looking for," she said. "Her name is Amina." The name struck him like a bell ringing through his chest. "Amina Mwangi. She comes here sometimes. She's special, always helping others, even when she has nothing herself. Karim's heart raced. He was so close. "Where can I find her?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman hesitated, then pointed toward a cluster of shacks farther down the muddy path. "Third alley, left side, small house with blue doors." Karim thanked her, his pulse pounding in his ears. Each step he took toward those blue doors felt heavier, laden with something he couldn't quite name. Was it gratitude? Was it guilt? Or was it the terrifying, impossible feeling that he was walking toward the woman who would change his life forever? But would she even want to see him again? And what could he possibly offer someone who had already given him everything without asking for anything in return? Karim stood in front of the small house with the faded blue doors, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth and charcoal fires. His heart hammered against his ribs, not from fear of danger. He had faced corporate sharks and ruthless politicians, but from something far more terrifying, the fear of being seen, truly seen, by someone who owed him nothing. He raised his hand and knocked softly. For a moment, only silence answered. Then he heard soft footsteps approaching from within. The door creaked open, and there she was, Amina. She wore a simple cotton dress, her hair tied back loosely, strands clinging to her damp forehead. Her eyes widened in shock when she saw him, a ghost she had pulled from the jaws of death now standing at her doorstep. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The world around them seemed to vanish, leaving only the two of them bound together by the unspoken memories of that violent night. "You," she whispered, barely audible over the distant sounds of the slum. Karim took off his cap, revealing the bandage still wrapped around his forehead. "I had to find you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I couldn't leave without thanking you." Amina stepped back, unsure. "You should be resting." He managed a faint smile. "I couldn't rest without seeing you first." She hesitated, then opened the door wider, silently inviting him in. The interior of the house was modest, a single room divided by a hanging sheet, a worn mattress tucked into one corner, a small stove in another. The walls were lined with scraps of old magazines for insulation. Yet despite the poverty, there was an undeniable warmth to the place. It smelled of tea and wood smoke, of life stubbornly holding on. Karim entered carefully, feeling more out of place than he ever had in the opulent towers of Dubai. "Sit," Amina offered, pulling a plastic chair forward. He lowered himself onto it with a wince. His ribs still protested with every movement. She poured him a cup of tea from a battered thermos, without asking if he wanted any. Here, kindness was instinctive, not transactional. As he sipped the sweet, smoky brew, he studied her in the dim light. There was strength in her posture, pride in the way she carried herself, despite having so little. She wasn't intimidated by him. She wasn't trying to impress him. It was disarming. "You saved my life," he said finally, setting the cup down. I owe you everything. Amina shook her head, her expression serious. You owe me nothing. I did what anyone should do. Karim leaned forward, struggling to find the right words. In my world, people don't help each other without expecting something in return. She met his gaze steadily. Maybe your world needs fixing. The honesty in her voice hit him harder than any business negotiation or public scandal ever had. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. I want to help you, he said. Whatever you need. Money, a better house, anything. Name it. Amina's eyes darkened, and for the first time since he arrived, a wall rose between them. I didn't help you for a reward, she said quietly. I helped you because it was the right thing to do. Shame burned Karim's cheeks. How had he thought he could fix this, fix her, with a checkbook? I'm sorry, he said, his voice raw. I didn't mean to insult you. She softened slightly, sensing his sincerity. It's not insult, she said. It's misunderstanding. You see me as someone who needs saving. Karim shook his head slowly. No, he said. I see you as someone who saved me. They sat in silence for a long moment, the storm outside finally beginning to ease. In that silence, a fragile bridge began to form between two vastly different worlds, one built on power and wealth, the other on resilience and heart. Karim realized then that he didn't just want to repay Amina. He wanted to know her, understand her, maybe even be changed by her. But was he ready to let go of everything he thought he knew to walk across that bridge? Or would the weight of his past and the secrets he still carried pull him back into the world he was so desperate to escape? The days that followed blurred into a strange rhythm neither Karim nor Amina fully understood. Every afternoon he returned to the small, blue-doored house, always under the watchful eyes of neighbors, suspicious of the well-dressed stranger wandering their streets. He would help Amina carry water, repair the crooked fence, or simply sit with her in the growing twilight, talking about everything, and sometimes nothing at all. For Karim, it was a life stripped of luxury, yet richer than anything he had known. For Amina, it was confusing. Who was this man who insisted on fixing broken chairs, who laughed awkwardly when a group of children splashed him with muddy water, who listened to her dreams as if they mattered? He told her his name was Karim, but little else. She sensed he carried heavy burdens, secrets tucked behind every kind smile and self-deprecating joke. Amina didn't press. In her world, everyone carried invisible scars. But the more he came, the more the questions gnawed at her. Why was a man with such hands, smooth, uncalloused, wandering her streets? Why did his eyes sometimes darken with a loneliness so profound it frightened her? And why did she feel herself slipping, slowly, dangerously, into caring. One evening, as the sun bled orange and gold across the horizon, Karim arrived at her door, carrying a large brown bag. "You didn't have to bring anything," Amina said, frowning as he set it down. He shrugged, looking almost boyish. "It's just some food. Rice, beans, oil." She opened the bag, heart twisting. It was more supplies than her family saw in a month. "Karim," she began, unsure how to explain that accepting too much from him scared her. "I know," he said softly, reading her hesitation. "But it's not charity. It's gratitude." Amina closed the bag, setting it aside. "You don't owe me," she repeated, though her voice trembled now with something she couldn't name. He studied her in the fading light, his heart thundering with words he couldn't say. Not yet. Instead, he changed the subject. "Tell me about your dream." She blinked. "Dream? You said you wanted to open a school someday, for girls, to give them a future." Amina smiled faintly. It had been a passing comment thrown into a conversation she hadn't thought he truly heard. She said, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. "I want to give back. Education saved me. It can save others." Karim leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Maybe. I can help make that happen." The words hung between them, heavy with promise and danger. Before she could respond, a loud voice called from the alley. "Amina!" She stepped outside to find her cousin Elijah storming toward her, anger flashing in his eyes. "Who is he?" Elijah demanded, glaring at Karim. "What is he doing here?" Amina stiffened. "He's a friend." Elijah scoffed. "A friend? We don't need the charity of outsiders, especially not from men who lie about who they are." Karim rose slowly from the chair, his body tense. "I haven't lied," he said evenly. "You didn't tell her who you really are." Elijah spat. Amina turned sharply to Karim. Her heart pounded painfully. "What is he talking about?" she asked, her voice low. Karim swallowed hard. The truth he had hidden, out of shame, fear, pride, was about to come crashing down. "I'm not just Karim," he said. "I'm Karim Al-Fulan." Recognition flickered in Amina's eyes, followed by something worse. Betrayal. She knew the name. Everyone did. The billionaire, the tycoon, the man whose face graced magazines, whose fortune could buy entire cities. "You lied," she said, stepping back. "I didn't lie," he said desperately. I wanted to be seen, not for my money, not for my power, just for me." Elijah barked a bitter laugh. "And now you see, cousin, even princes can pretend to be paupers." Amina's hands trembled. The man she had saved was not a lost soul wandering her world. He was a king playing at being ordinary. And worse, he had let her believe they were equals. Without another word, Amina turned and disappeared into her house, the door slamming shut behind her. Karim stood there, the weight of his lies heavier than any wound he had suffered in the crash. He had tried to find salvation here, among the broken and brave. But maybe he had only brought more destruction. Would Amina ever forgive him? Or had he lost the only person who had ever seen him for who he truly was? The night weighed heavy over Kibera, a suffocating blanket of regret and anger that neither the rain nor the stars could wash away. Karim stood alone outside the blue doors, the echo of Amina's footsteps still pounding in his ears. He had come seeking redemption. Instead, he had shattered the fragile bridge they had built. He pressed his forehead against the cool wood, his heart aching in ways no wealth, no influence could heal. Inside, Amina sat on the edge of her bed, staring blankly at the wall. The betrayal stung deeper than she wanted to admit. It wasn't that Karim was rich. It wasn't that he was famous. It was that he hadn't trusted her with the truth. He had made her believe he was just like her. Someone surviving. Someone human. But now, she wondered if she had been nothing more than another project to him. Another broken thing for him to fix. A soft knock came at the door. "Amina, please," Karim's voice called through the wood, thick with emotion. "Let me explain." She closed her eyes, willing herself to be strong. He had lied by omission. He had crossed a line that couldn't easily be erased. But against her will, her heart twisted at the sound of his voice. She had seen the real man in those quiet evenings, humble, wounded, longing for something beyond riches. Hadn't she? Slowly she rose and opened the door just a crack. Karim stood there, soaked from the lingering drizzle, hands hanging helplessly at his sides. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said. His voice broke. "I didn't know how to tell you who I really was. I was afraid. If you knew, you'd treat me differently." Amina held his gaze, steady despite the storm raging inside her. "And you thought lying was better?" He winced. "I thought if I could just have a little more time being seen, not as a billionaire, not as a headline, but as a man, maybe I could hold on to something real." The pain in his voice was raw, unfiltered. For a long moment, Amina said nothing. Then she opened the door wider and stepped outside, pulling her shawl tight against the night air. "You wanted to be seen," she said quietly. "And I saw you, Karim. Long before I knew your name." The words hung between them, fragile and dangerous. "But now," she continued, "I have to wonder if the man I saw was real, or just another mask you wear when it suits you." Karim shook his head, desperate. "You saved me," he whispered. "Not just from the crash, but from myself. I didn't know how empty I was until I met you." Tears burned in Amina's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "You don't understand," she said. "In this world, trust is the only thing we have. If I can't trust you, then what are we?" The question gutted him. He took a slow step closer, as if approaching a wild creature that might bolt at any moment. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said. "I just need you to know I was more myself with you than I have been in years." Amina looked at him, at this man who had crossed oceans of wealth and pride, to stand here in the mud before her, stripped bare. "I don't need your money," she said. "I know," he replied. "And that's why I need you." The words were simple, terrifying, because for a man like Karim, needing someone meant surrendering everything he had built his life around: control, power, detachment. For a woman like Amina, needing him meant risking the fragile independence she had fought for every day of her life. The silence stretched between them, vibrating with unspoken fears and impossible dreams. Finally, Amina exhaled, a sound full of sadness and something dangerously close to hope. "I don't know if I can trust you again," she said, "but maybe. Trust has to start somewhere." Karim's chest ached with the weight of it all, the mistakes he had made, the chance she was offering him. "I'll earn it," he said, "every day, for as long as it takes." She gave a small, broken smile. "Then you'd better be ready for a long road." And somehow, even with the world still broken around them, Karim felt lighter. He had lost everything once before. But standing here, under the indifferent stars, he realized he was ready to lose it all again, if it meant earning her heart. Yet, as their fragile connection rekindled, neither of them knew that new storms were already gathering. And this time, fate would demand an even greater price. The days that followed were quieter, almost fragile. Karim returned every afternoon, never empty-handed, but never overwhelming her. Sometimes he brought fresh bread, sometimes just a story to share. Amina let him back in slowly, like opening a door against a stubborn wind. She watched him fix broken tiles on her roof with clumsy hands, laughing when he fell off the stool, cursing in Arabic. Each laugh, each shared meal, chipped away at the fortress she had built around her heart. But trust, once broken, doesn't mend without scars. One evening, as they sat outside watching the sunset, a black SUV pulled into the alley, gleaming and out of place among the rusted roofs. Men in suits stepped out, cold-eyed and sharp. Karim's past had found him. One of the men barked into a phone. Another handed Karim a document, urgent and harsh. His empire was crumbling, rivals circling, scandals brewing. Without his leadership, everything he had built would be torn apart. "You have to come back," one said. Amina heard it all, saw the change in Karim's posture, the weight of another life pressing down. He looked at her, a question in his eyes. But how could she ask him to stay? And how could she bear to let him go? Karim stood at a crossroads no amount of money could fix. Duty clawed at him, Amina's silent gaze anchored him. He could leave and save his empire, or stay and risk losing everything. For the first time, he hesitated. "I can't ask you to stay," Amina said, her voice steady even as her heart cracked. "Your people need you. My heart needs you," he said simply. Tears blurred her vision, but she shook her head. Sometimes, loving someone means letting them go. The words tasted like ash. Karim cupped her face, memorizing every line, every freckle, every breath. "I will come back for you," he vowed. "I swear it." Amina nodded, though part of her didn't believe promises made in storms and goodbyes. She stood in the doorway as he left, the blue doors open behind her, the night swallowing him whole, and she whispered into the darkness, "Don't forget me." Months passed. Letters came first, short, messy, full of longing, then silence. Nairobi moved on. Amina worked, lived, dreamed less. Some nights she thought of him, but pushed the memories away like old songs that hurt too much. Until the morning she opened her door and found him there. No suits, no cars, just Karim, in worn jeans, holding a small wooden box. Inside, papers, official, embossed with seals. The title deed to a school, her name printed in gold. "I told you I'd come back," he said. Tears filled her eyes. "You built the school?" she whispered. "We built it," he said, "together." And there, on the muddy streets, where a king once found salvation in the arms of a girl who asked for nothing, they began again. This time, with nothing to hide. This time, with everything to hope.